The new Luminar Neo has just been released with one of its biggest updates yet, and it comes with the brand new Twilight Enhancer, which is a brilliant and powerful tool for golden hour and blue hour image editing. The new Water Enhancer uses AI to recognize a body of water and bring it to life with precise adjustments. We now have Luminosity Masks for professional selections, just like in Photoshop, and object selection for precise masking and adjustments, plus a bunch of other AI-powered features like batch HDR processing, generative expand and swap, and all of the other brilliant features we had from before. So let's take a look at them in action right now. So this is the brand new interface. A couple of new features over here on the right hand side and some familiar ones too. Right, let's open up one of these images. This was taken by me at the fairy pools on the Isle of Skye a few years ago. And if you've ever been here before, you'll know that these pools of water are actually very vibrant in real life, full of bluey greens, especially on proper sunny days. So let's bring this scene to life. So here's that new brilliant Twilight Enhancer, which we'll look at shortly, and the other new Water Enhancer. So just to begin with, let's crank up the amount to about 50% and see what we get by default. That's added some nice blues, and if we hover over the area, we can see the mask which Luminar Neo's AI engine has produced, and it's pretty accurate. It's found the outline of these rocks, the shoreline, which is actually not that obvious. It has missed a little bit down here, but let's sort that out. So down here we have the Refine Area drop-down menu. So let's choose Erase and just remove it from the waterfall. I mean, it's amazing that it knew to include this in the first place, but we don't really need it. And switching back to Draw, we can complete the mask on this missing section with the soft edge brush. Now we have a perfect mask, let's really bring this water to life with some manual adjustments. Firstly, the blue color is more indicative of a big body of water like an ocean, not really a fairy pool. So let's introduce some greens and a quick before and after. I'll reduce down the blues to say 35%. Now here is where things have a real impact using the brightness slider. 100% is too much. Let's settle on about 90 and some contrast for light and shade. Now the amount slider and original color kind of work in tandem. Bringing back the original color will do what it says on the tin, and amount will control the intensity and the vibrance. Let's settle on 65%, and that's a great improvement over the original. Another thing we can do to enhance this pool of water is local dodge and burn. We have lighten and darken. I'll keep the strength to around 25%, and using the lighten brush with softness at 100%, we can paint over those brighter reflection portions in the water. And this gives us a really nice effect. Some little bits over here. Nice. Now we can control the strength of that effect down to 25%, looks about right. Now for a touch of burn, just to darken down the shadowy areas. Maybe in this corner as well. That's looking good. Now the sky looks a little washed out, so we can use the enhance feature. The accent will bring up the shadows, which we don't really need on this edit, but the sky enhancer will bring back some of that lost detail. Now I would like to draw the eye into the scene more using a linear gradient in the develop module. So choosing masking, let's drag up from the corner. Heading back into the adjustment tools, let's choose curves and drag the shadows down. Much better. Now this place, as I said before, is called the fairy pools. And one final adjustment we can add is a mystical effect for a dreamlike quality. Full tilt might be a bit too strong for your taste, so let's try around 40%. And here is the final edit using that new Water Enhancer, along with some features from previous versions of Luminar Neo. Right, let's take a look at this brilliant new Twilight Enhancer, and the clue is in the title here. It's designed to work on images that were taken around the end of golden hour and into blue hour. Okay, here's an image I took in Washington, DC on the eve of the Apollo 11 anniversary celebrations, where they projected a life-size rocket onto the monument. Very cool to be there. So the first thing I'm going to do is use the Enhance tool and accent slider to level out the exposure on the people in the foreground. I mean, how easy and good is that? No messing around. Right, let's close that and head straight down to Twilight Enhancer. And we have a good selection of presets to choose from, but mauve is the default, so let's go with that. And boom, without making any manual adjustments, it's a fantastic edit straight out of the box. Right, let's push it further, and that is so cinematic. Maybe bring up the exposure a touch. Now there is some grainy noise in this image, so let's use the noiseless tool. And Luminar Neo's AI engine is suggesting that we use the middle setting to restore the image. So let's go with that. And after a few seconds and some pretty graphics, the results come back. And if we just focus in on this area, watch the noise almost completely disappear without any grungy, weird artifacts. Another feature that Luminar Neo has in its update is the ability to select objects within a scene. And opening the Develop module and clicking Masking, we now have this object select. And pretty quickly, the software has analyzed the scene. And if we hover over the monument, it has made individual selections between it and the sky. So let's choose the monument's mask, and using curves, I'll just bring up the exposure in the middle area. A quick before and after, and that is perfect. Let's head back into the Twilight adjustment layer that we produced earlier and see what other presets look like. Here's golden, blush, and blue is going to give us more of a blue hour effect. But mauve is definitely my favorite on this particular image. Let's take a look at this scene where we can use Twilight and Water Enhancer together. I'll begin again by using the powerful Enhancer tool to level out the exposure and just bring back the sky. And again, let's use the Twilight Enhancer, but this time I'm going to use the golden hour effect. And that's a little too underexposed. And amount, let's push to around 85%. And it's a bit on the yellowy side, so we can level out the temperature and tint sliders. There, looks good. Dawn controls the kind of time of day effect that you want. I think 100% works well. Scene, we can crush those blacks if we so desire, maybe around 30, looking really warm now. The water enhancer, again, let's push up the amount to around 45%, but we don't actually want any color this time, so we can take out those blues and greens and just simply push the brightness and contrast for a bit more punch. Quick before and after, and that's just lifted that body of water nicely. Finally, let's color grade the image using one of these built-in mood templates. Let's try portrait toning, and hovering over gives us a real-time update of the grade. I think Athena is the best on this particular image, and within a few minutes we've transformed this scene into a cinematic sunset color grade. Here's one I prepared earlier, and the original looked like this. And using a series of Twilight enhancing, object selection to lift the castle from the background. Let's just zoom in and show you a close-up. And dodge and burn for the castle reflection in the water. Atmosphere to add a touch of haze along the edge of the shoreline. Enhance to lift the accent exposure. And finally, water enhancer just to saturate the blues in the shadow areas of the reflection. Another brand new feature is the ability to batch process hundreds of images into HDR renders automatically. And when I say hundreds, I mean 1,000. And how this works is if you have a folder of multiple scenes all taken with varying exposures for the purpose of exposure blending, you can drag all of them into the HDR module, and Luminar Neo will figure out which images go together, and with one click create HDR exposure blends of all of the scenes. Once the batch render is complete, they will appear in the HDR folder. And here is one of those images. It saves you a huge amount of time, especially if you have lots of landscapes taken with multiple exposures. GenExpand can be a useful feature if you have an image that needs to be wider, like this Ferrari shot, to give the car more breathing room on either side. Simply drag the cropping tool to where you want the ratio to be and type in the AI search bar something like expand the original scene. Then wait a few moments while Luminar figures out how to render your request. Pretty decent results. Similarly, if you have an image with a great big distracting item like a car ruining the composition, you can use the GenErase tool to select the offending object and let Luminar Neo weave its magic. Let's compare this to how Photoshop handles the remove tool on the same image. Luminar Neo delivers much cleaner results and detail consistent with the original scene. Now, luminosity masks are something that third-party plugin developers have been designing for a number of years for the advanced users of Photoshop, and they can be a little bit confusing and convoluted to get your head around. Well, Luminar Neo have introduced a user-friendly luminosity mask feature for us all to use and placed it inside any tool that uses masking. Let's say you have an image that you want to bring attention to, like this foreground rock formation. Normally, you would head into, say, curves and perform an S-curve to enhance the contrast. But you'll notice that it's affecting the entire scene in the background, which we don't want. How we can remedy this is by heading into masking and the new luminosity masks. And with this easy-to-use luminance slider, you can find the darker parts of the image. Under the slider is a feathering effect to soften the transition of the mask. So finding the sweet spot, which is about there, we can head back into the adjustments and see the difference using before and after. Much more focus is now on that foreground. Similarly, we can use luminosity masks to color grade. So we want to use this toning feature to add some color into the brightest parts of the image. Let's choose a color that we like. This teal is nice, but you can see it's kind of affecting the midtones as well, which we don't want. Simply head into the masking luminosity feature, find the parts of the image that you only want the color, and feather the edge. Head back into the adjustment and make any tweaks to the color. I'm happy with this, so we can export the image. Along with all these incredible new features, we still have one of my favorites, which is Portrait Bokeh, which is down here. We can crank up the amount for full impact, and that's automatically found the talent and given us subject isolation. Using the focus tool, we can bring back this foreground item, feather the railing so it transitions nicely into the background, bring back her hair, which the mask missed. Then we can use the vignette tool and choose the subject, which will place the center point of the vignette over the talent. And how about adding a mood LUT like this Los Angeles one? Very nice. Perhaps a reduction in exposure. And finally, a soft focus glow effect, which gives us very pleasing results from the original. This new software update offers so many features like magic lights for adding illuminations to light sources, neon and glow features, focus stacking for multiple images with varying focus points, and portrait lighting effects. So with all of these features, old and new, it's hard to see why you would need Lightroom and Photoshop as well, depending on your requirements, of course. It is the complete package for organizing, editing, and color grading your images into works of art. From one-click presets to complex layered adjustments. I certainly couldn't do without Luminar Neo because once you try it, it's hard to remember a time when you didn't have it. Anyway, thanks for watching. Please give us a thumbs up if you enjoyed the video. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more photography content. I have a headshot photography course available if you're into portrait photography. I'll pop links to that in the description below. And I have a Lightroom preset pack as well. So I'll see you on the flip side.